Do you know what's worse than being forgotten? It's being remembered only as an inconvenience. Sometimes life teaches you lessons so quietly that you don't even realize you've been taught, until someone decides your existence is no longer useful. That's when you learn the real difference between being loved and being kept. Before I begin, thank you for listening. Not everyone chooses to hear an old woman's story. It takes patience to sit through someone else's silence. If it's not too much to ask, would you tell me where you're listening from? And what time it is there right now? It helps me picture you, somewhere far away, awake, breathing, maybe sipping tea. And that makes me feel a little less alone tonight. My name is Evelyn Ross. Once upon a time, I ran a small business with my husband, wooden furniture, handmade, solid, honest. We built everything ourselves. No fancy machines, no shortcuts, just wood, sweat, and time. Those years smelled of sawdust and coffee, of love that didn't need words. My husband, Thomas, passed away 5 winters ago. Hart stopped quietly in his sleep, like even his death didn't want to disturb anyone. After the funeral, I sold the workshop. Not because I wanted to, but because silence had grown too loud between the empty benches. I packed my things, a few clothes, our old photographs, and the wooden box that held our life's papers, and moved in with my daughter, Clara. Clara had married well. Her husband, Aaron, was a businessman, the kind who believed success meant never slowing down. He wasn't cruel, not exactly. Just sharp like glass. He looked at everything, even people, and saw either potential or waste. When I arrived, he was polite. Too polite. "Mrs. Ross," he said, shaking my hand like a stranger. "It's good to finally have you here." I smiled. "You can call me Evelyn, or Mom, if you like." He smiled back, that tight smile that never reaches the eyes. "Let's stick with Evelyn, shall we?" I nodded. That was our beginning. The house was big. Glass walls, metal furniture, light that hummed cold instead of warm. Every sound echoed. Every room smelled of something new, synthetic, untouched by time. I missed the old kind of quiet, the kind that held history. In the mornings, when the house was still, I'd sit by the window with my tea, open my old box, and spread out the photographs. There was Thomas covered in sawdust laughing. There was our first workshop, tiny and messy, with a sign we'd painted by hand, Ross & Co., crafted with care. And there was me, 25, with calloused hands and a smile that had no idea what grief felt like. Sometimes, Clara would join me. She'd sit, smile softly, and say, "I remember that chair. You and Dad made it for my birthday." And for a moment, we'd both drift back to that time. Simpler, slower, truer. But Aaron never joined. He'd pass by, glance at the table cluttered with old pictures and yellow papers, and mutter, "You really keep a lot of history." History. He said it like it was a bad habit. One morning, I heard him whisper to Clara when he thought I couldn't hear. "She fills the girls' heads with stories about the good old days. You know what that does? Makes them think we're doing everything wrong now." "She's just sharing memories," Clara said softly. "Memories don't pay the mortgage," he snapped. From that day, he kept his distance and started keeping Clara's daughters away from me, too. But Lily and Nora were curious souls, just like their grandfather had been. They'd sneak into my room at night, crawl under my blanket, and whisper, "Grandma, tell us about the house with the blue door again." So I'd tell them about the summers filled with the sound of hammers and rain, about Thomas carving his initials in every table leg he made, saying, "So that even when I'm gone, a part of me will hold the world steady." They'd listen wide-eyed, like it was a secret, because in a way it was, a secret world built on patience, something their father would never understand. One evening, I came home from a short walk in the garden and found Aaron standing by the living room window. He didn't look at me. He was staring at the table, my table, where I'd left my box open again. Photos, papers, letters, scattered like old leaves. He sighed. "You really can't live without that junk, can you?" I froze. "They're not junk. They're old things, useless things," he interrupted, his voice calm, cruelly calm. "You've got this house filled with clutter. Memories, nostalgia, dust. It's time to move on, Evelyn." I wanted to speak, but something inside me said, "Don't waste breath on the deaf." That night I couldn't sleep. I sat near the window and touched every photograph, tracing Thomas's face with my thumb. My heart hurt, not just from his loss, but from this new kind of loneliness, the kind that lives among people. The next morning I woke to noise outside. A thud, then another. Voices, Aaron's and the cleaners. I stepped out and froze. Everything, the photos, the letters, even my husband's sketches, was lying near the garbage bins. The wooden box broken at the hinge. My life scattered in the dirt. Aaron stood nearby, sleeves rolled up, giving orders like a man in charge of a demolition. When he saw me, he frowned, annoyed more than guilty. "These things were cluttering up the place. I told you to keep it tidy." My throat tightened. "You threw them away?" He shrugged. "If they mattered that much, you should have kept them safe somewhere else." The world blurred for a second. Not from tears, I didn't cry, but from the weight of realization. When a man decides your memories are disposable, you stop trying to explain why they're sacred. I walked past him quietly, bent down, picked up what I could. A damp letter here, a torn picture there, every piece heavier than it looked. He said something behind me. I don't remember what, because I had already decided. That night, while the house slept, I packed my suitcase. A few clothes, a few photographs that hadn't drowned in the rain. And the broken box? I left a note on the counter for Clara. "Don't worry. I'm going home. Some places may be old, but at least they still remember who I am." I took the first bus out of the city before sunrise. The road back to my old house was lined with wildflowers and silence. Every mile felt like I was stitching myself back together. When I reached, the key still fit the door. Inside, dust covered everything, but the air was familiar, warm, forgiving. I placed the rescued photos on the old wooden table and whispered, "I brought you back, Thomas. What's left of us, at least." That night, for the first time in months, I slept without hearing anyone's footsteps upstairs, just the sound of wind and peace. But I had no idea that the same box Aaron called useless would one day hold the only thing he'd come begging me for, the very papers that could save his crumbling empire. Because the past never truly dies. It just waits, patiently, for those who tried to bury it. Do you know how silence can sound like thunder when someone finally begins to fall apart? For months after I left Clara's house, I didn't hear from them. Not a call. Not a message. Nothing. At first, I thought maybe that was good, that my absence had made life easier for them. But silence, I've learned, doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes it's just pride wearing a mask. Out in my old home, days grew slower, warmer. I began restoring the place, wiping the dust from old frames, fixing the loose tiles, oiling the wooden table Thomas had built decades ago. Every nail, every scratch whispered something familiar. Life wasn't loud, but it was honest. I even started teaching the neighbors' kids how to carve small wooden birds. Their laughter filled the rooms again. They called me Miss Evelyn, like a character from some fairy tale, the kind who lives in a house that remembers things the world forgot. But at night, when the lights dimmed, I often found myself looking out at the road, half expecting a car to stop, a familiar knock, a voice saying, "Mom, we miss you," It never came. Then one evening the phone rang. The sound startled me. I hadn't heard it in weeks. It was Clara. Her voice trembled between words. "Mom, can we talk?" I smiled without realizing it. "Of course, sweetheart. How are the girls?" "They're okay," she said. Then silence. Long, shaking silence. "What is it, Clara?" "It's Aaron," she whispered. "Something's gone wrong." My heart slowed. "What do you mean?" "There was a merger deal," she said. "His company was expanding. Everything looked perfect. But now, they've discovered a problem with ownership papers. Something about the original license documents being incomplete. I felt the air shift, as if some unseen thread had started tightening around destiny. "And what does that have to do with me?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "The documents were part of the old Ross & Co. archives, the ones Dad signed. The ones you kept," I closed my eyes. "The ones Aaron had called junk. The ones I picked from the dirt that morning while he watched." "Mom," she continued, her voice breaking, "without those papers, the deal falls apart. The bank's freezing accounts. Investors are pulling out. We could lose everything." There it was, the sound of thunder breaking the silence. I didn't answer right away. My hand rested on the wooden box, still cracked at the hinge, still carrying pieces of a life that someone else had thrown away. "Mom?" "I have them," I said softly. I could almost hear her relief through the phone, the way someone gasps after being underwater too long. "Can you please send them?" "Please, Aaron didn't mean to—" I stopped her there. "Clara," I said, "don't make excuses for disrespect. Not even if it wears a suit," she cried quietly. "He's just desperate now." "I know," I said, "and maybe desperation teaches what pride never could." After the call, I sat alone with the box open. Inside, the papers looked ordinary, yellowed edges, faded ink. But I knew what they were worth. The foundation of a company built by honest hands. And maybe that was what made them priceless. Not their legal weight, but the history they carried. I ran my fingers over Thomas's signature. Strong. Confident. Carved in ink the way he carved wood. Thomas Ross. Founder. Ross & Co. 1984. It wasn't just a name. It was a promise. I wrapped the papers gently in cloth and kept them aside. But before I decided what to do, I needed to know why Aaron really wanted them. 2 days later, a black car stopped outside my house. The sound of city tires on country dirt always feels strange, like something foreign trying to enter a sacred space. When I opened the door, Aaron was standing there. He looked different. The suit was still pressed, the tie perfect, but his face had no arrogance left. There were dark circles beneath his eyes, and his posture was no longer straight. It bent slightly under invisible weight. "Evelyn," he said quietly. "No Mrs. Ross this time. Just my name, like a man speaking to his own conscience." "I didn't expect you to come here yourself," I said. "I didn't have a choice," he muttered. "We're out of time." He stepped inside, glancing around the house as if seeing it for the first time. The wooden walls, the old furniture, the soft smell of varnish and sunlight, all of it made him uneasy. It was too real for him. He tried to speak, but words kept breaking before they left his lips. Finally, he said, "I made a mistake." I looked up. "Which one?" He blinked, realizing there were too many to count. "The documents. The ones from your old workshop. I didn't realize they were part of the original legal chain. Without them, the company can't prove ownership of its design rights." "So," I said slowly, "you threw away your roots, and now your house has no foundation." He looked down. "Please, Evelyn. I know what I did was wrong. I'll do anything to make it right. Just, please give me the papers." I watched him struggle. This was not the confident man who once ordered cleaners to throw my memories in the trash. This was a man stripped of certainty, naked before the truth he had mocked. I walked to the old shelf and took out the wooden box, the same one he had broken. I placed it on the table between us. He stared at it, silent. When I opened it, the papers were there, neatly stacked, perfectly safe. "You called this junk," I said. "Do you remember?" He swallowed hard. "I do." I leaned closer. "You threw away everything that built the life you're living in, and now you're asking me to rescue it. Tell me, Aaron, do you even know why these papers exist?" He shook his head. "Because your fancy office, your expensive cars, your perfect house, they were all born from these hands." I lifted one hand, scarred and wrinkled from years of carving wood. From sweat, from patience, from two people who built something out of nothing. Aaron's eyes flickered with shame. For a long moment I just stared at him, and in that silence, I saw him the way Thomas would have. Not as a villain, but as a child who never learned respect until life taught it the hard way. "Finally," I said, "you can have the papers." He looked up, stunned. "But only under one condition." "Anything," he said. "You go back home and tell my daughter and those girls why you need them. Tell them whose name is written at the bottom of every page. Tell them who made the company you claim is yours." He nodded slowly. "I will." I handed him the folder. His hands trembled as he took it, as though he were holding something sacred. For the first time, his eyes softened, not out of victory, but gratitude. When he left, the silence returned. But it felt different. Not heavy, just still, like a calm before dawn. That night, Clara called again. "Mom, he told the girls everything," she said. "They couldn't believe it. They asked about you, about Grandpa, about how you started." I smiled, though tears blurred my vision. Then maybe it wasn't all for nothing. 3 weeks later, I received a letter, not typed, but handwritten. "Aaron's handwriting, Evelyn, the deal went through. The company's safe." But more than that, the story behind those papers changed the way I see everything. "You didn't just save our business. You reminded me what a business is supposed to be built on. If you ever choose to come back, your room is waiting." Aaron, I didn't go back. Some lessons don't need to be repeated. They just need to be remembered. But that night I stood outside under the stars, looking up at the same sky that once watched Thomas build our dream from dust. I whispered, "You see, love? The roots you planted still hold." And somewhere, I swear I could feel the quiet hum of his laughter in the wind, because when people try to erase your past, they forget one thing. You can't destroy what was built with truth. You can only lose yourself trying. Do you know what true peace feels like? It's not in forgiveness or revenge. It's in that still moment when life finally bends, quietly, in your favor.